Hello, friend. I'm Hope, and I'm really glad you're here today. Welcome to English with Hope, a calm space for your mind and your heart. In this channel, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to rush. Here, we learn English slowly. We listen to English gently. No pressure, no stress. And here, you are not alone. Wherever you are in the world, I'm right here with you. So relax your shoulders, take a slow breath, and let's begin. Somewhere, right now, a child is learning how to hide their feelings, not because they want to, but because someone, somewhere, taught them it was safer that way. This happens in almost every home, in almost every generation. Not always through cruelty, often through silence, distraction, or simple human limitation. And so we grow up carrying a quiet question underneath everything we do. Was I truly seen? Here is the gentle truth. You are not the only one who wonders this. Millions of people across every culture and every age carry the same soft ache. And the fact that you're here, listening, already tells me something beautiful about you. You are ready to understand it differently. Today, we are going to walk through something tender together. Trauma and emotional neglect, not as a diagnosis, not as a heavy label to carry around, but as a shared human experience that almost everyone quietly knows. By the end of this episode, I hope you feel something shift, a little more clarity about where these old feelings come from, a little more distance from the guilt that often follows them, and a little more trust in your own ability to heal gently at your own pace. This is not about blaming anyone. It's about finally understanding the whole picture. So let's slow down together. Let's look at this with open eyes and an open heart. I want to tell you about an ordinary afternoon. Years ago, nothing special was happening. I was sitting with a friend, and I mentioned something that had upset me earlier that day. And right after I said it, I heard myself say, "Sorry, I don't mean to make a big deal out of this." My friend paused. She looked at me and asked, "Why are you apologizing for having a feeling?" I didn't have an answer right away. I just sat there, a little surprised by my own words. Later that evening, I thought about it more. I realized I had been doing this my whole life, shrinking my emotions before anyone else could question them, softening my own experience so it wouldn't inconvenience anyone. And I started to trace it back to a childhood where feelings were rarely asked about, where "I'm fine" was the expected answer, even when it wasn't true. No one had done this with cruelty. It was simply the pattern they knew. But sitting there that evening, something small and important became clear to me. I could keep repeating that old pattern, or I could choose something different, starting with one honest sentence at a time. So I tried something new. The next time I felt something, I didn't apologize for it. I simply said what was true. It felt strange at first, almost too simple. But that one small shift opened a door I didn't know was there. And I I've been walking through it ever since. The people who hurt us were often unfinished too. Have you noticed how the people who hurt us were often just repeating what was done to them? It's a strange thing to sit with. The parent who didn't know how to comfort you may have never been comforted themselves. The teacher who dismissed your feelings may have grown up in a place where feelings were never welcome either. This isn't an excuse. It's a window. Because once you see this clearly, something inside you softens. You stop asking, why did they do this to me? And you start understanding they were passing along something they never had the chance to heal. This shift doesn't erase what happened, but it quietly loosens the grip guilt and anger often have on us. You realize you were never the reason for their limitations. You simply arrived in the middle of a story that started long before you existed. There's a kind of freedom in this understanding. It means you don't have to carry their unfinished chapters as if they were your own failures. You get to close that book gently and open a new one, written in your own words. Somewhere, right now, someone is breaking a pattern their family carried for generations. It might be you. And every time a person chooses awareness over repetition, something shifts, not just for them, but for everyone who comes after them. That is not a small thing. That is one of the quiet ways healing moves through the world. Your past explains you. It does not have to define you. Your childhood explains your patterns. It does not have to define your future. This is one of the most freeing truths a person can learn. So often, we treat our early years like a life sentence, as if the way we were raised is the only way we're allowed to be. But explanation and destiny are two very different things. Understanding where a pattern came from gives you something powerful. It gives you choice. Because once you know why you flinch at certain words, or why you struggle to ask for help, you're no longer confused by your own reactions. You're informed by them. And informed people can make new decisions. Think of it this way. A river doesn't stay in the same path forever. Over time, it finds new ground, shaped by what it meets along the way. You are allowed to do the same. This doesn't mean the past disappears. It means it stops being the only voice in the room. You get to sit at that same table now, as an adult, and add your own perspective to the conversation. Many people spend years afraid that healing means becoming someone entirely different. But it's often simpler than that. It means slowly becoming more fully yourself, the version that was always underneath the old patterns. You are not who you were at 7, or 12, or 17. You are someone who has lived, learned, and grown since then. And that growth is proof that change was always possible for you, even before you believed it. Releasing the weight for words that may never arrive. What would it feel like to stop waiting for an apology that may never come? So many of us hold a quiet hope that one day, the person who hurt us will finally understand. finally say the right words, finally make it all make sense. And sometimes that moment never arrives. Not because your pain wasn't real, but because some people never gain the awareness needed to offer that kind of repair. This can feel unfair, and in many ways, it is. But here is a gentler way to hold it. The psychiatrist Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." What he meant is simple, really. The things we don't examine keep quietly steering us, often without our permission. But the moment we bring them into the light, we get to choose our next step, instead of repeating an old one. Waiting for someone else's apology puts your peace in someone else's hands. And you deserve peace. That doesn't depend on another person's timeline or their capacity for change. This doesn't mean you have to forgive quickly or pretend everything is resolved. It means you get to release the idea that your healing is on hold until they show up correctly. Your healing was never supposed to depend on their growth. It only ever needed your willingness. And the moment you place that decision back in your own hands, something quiet and powerful happens. You stop waiting. You start living. What healing actually asks of you? Healing is not about forgetting the past. It's about no longer needing it to change. This is worth sitting with for a moment. So many people believe healing means the memories should fade, the pain should disappear, or the story should somehow rewrite itself into something painless. But that's not quite how it works, and that's all right. Healing is quieter than that. It's the moment you can remember something difficult without it taking over your whole day. It's being able to think of a person or a moment from your past and feeling steady rather than shaken. The memory stays, but your relationship to it softens. This is important because it means healing isn't about erasing your history. It's about no longer needing your history to be different in order to feel okay right now. That single shift changes everything. You stop asking the past to apologize. You stop asking old moments to explain themselves. Instead, you start asking yourself a much kinder question. What do I need today to feel safe and whole? This question belongs entirely to you. No one else has to answer it. No one else has to agree with it. It is simply yours. And once you begin asking it regularly, healing stops feeling like a distant destination. It becomes something you practice gently, in ordinary moments. A conversation, a quiet evening, a single honest sentence. Healing was never meant to be dramatic or sudden. It was always meant to be this soft, steady, everyday kind of becoming. Becoming the author of what comes next. Who might you become once you stop carrying a story that was never fully yours to hold? This is the question that quietly waits at the center of all healing. For so long, many of us carry stories that were handed to us before we had any say in them. A family's silence, a parent's unresolved pain, a household's unspoken rules about what feelings were allowed. These stories were never truly written by you, and yet, without realizing it, we often keep repeating their chapters, as if we're obligated to finish them exactly as they began. But you're not. There's a certain moment, often small and unannounced, when a person realizes they've been handed a pen not to erase what happened, but to decide what happens next. This is what self-authorship really means. It's not about becoming a completely different person. It's about recognizing that you get to choose your own responses, your own boundaries, your own definitions of safety and love, starting from wherever you are right now. Imagine setting down a story that was never truly yours. Imagine picking up a blank page instead, one shaped by your own understanding, your own pace, your own voice. This is available to you, not someday, in some distant future, but quietly, gradually, beginning today. You are allowed to write a new chapter, one where you are not defined by what was missing, but by everything you've chosen to build since. And that, more than anything else, is where real freedom begins. Now, let's bring this gently into your everyday life, not as a list of chores, but as small, quiet gestures you can offer yourself. The first is a simple daily check-in. Once a day, perhaps in the morning or right before bed, pause for a few seconds and silently ask yourself, how am I actually feeling? Not how you should feel. Not how it would be easier to feel. Just the truth, whatever it is. You don't have to fix it or explain it to anyone. You only have to notice it. Over time, this small habit rebuilds a kind of trust between you and your own emotions. The second is writing a brief note to your younger self whenever an old wound quietly surfaces. It doesn't need to be long. Just a few honest lines, offering the words that version of you once needed to hear. Something like, you were never too much. You were always allowed to feel this. This isn't about reliving the past. It's about finally giving comfort to the part of you that didn't receive it the first time around. And the final habit is practicing one small act of self-permission each week, allowing yourself to rest without guilt, allowing yourself to say no without a long explanation, allowing yourself to feel something fully without needing anyone else's approval first. These 3 habits are gentle, quiet, and entirely yours. No pressure, no perfection required. Just small, steady acts of coming home to yourself. Let's take a slow breath together before we close. Today, we walked through something tender. We remembered that the people who hurt us often carried their own unfinished stories. We recognize that our past explains us, but it never has to define us. We release the weight for words that may never come. We understood that healing isn't about forgetting, but about finding steadiness within the memory itself. And we discovered that we hold the pen to whatever comes next. None of this happens all at once. Healing is not a single moment. It's a quiet, ongoing relationship you build with yourself, one honest day at a time. So be patient with your own process. Some days will feel lighter than others, and that's all right. Growth rarely moves in a straight line. It moves gently, like the seasons, in its own time. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are simply someone who is learning, slowly and honestly, how to come home to themselves. And that, in itself, is something worth being proud of. Thank you for walking through this reflection with me today. If this lesson brought you value, comfort, or a new perspective, I would sincerely appreciate your support through a like and subscription. Every gesture of support helps keep this channel alive and allows these lessons to reach more people around the world. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your time, your presence, and for being part of this community. Goodbye for now, friend.